All right, let's see here. It's Friday, the 4th, March. Looking at Boeing. So I shared it today. We discussed it today in the live session. By the way, the live session was pretty exciting today. I even upset somebody unintentionally. Anyway, so Boeing, the fundamentals have not changed much. I think they had some sort of a headline this week. I'm not sure. The stock market today fell somewhere over 1%, but it could have been much worse. In Europe, they fell a lot more. Last time I looked, for the DAX, for example, was down like 5%, between 4 and 5%. In the U.S., being down, the Nasdaq was down 1.7. The S&P, at least the futures, I think, were down a lot less. So all in all, it could have been a lot worse this week. I believe the S&P and the Dow's weekly candle is a doji greenish, meaning they had highs, they had lows, and they closed about flat to green for the week. That's pretty incredible given the headlines that are flying around this week. I mean, for crying out loud, world war should scare the bejesus out of people, and legitimately so. It is a headline I pay attention to because it does change the bottom line. I usually say ignore the headlines, but there are a few that matter, like the quarantine. The lockdown matters because it literally closed all the businesses. This one would matter if we go to global war, which my assumption is that we won't. It's too expensive, not to mention lives, but money. And governments are still struggling to fight a common enemy, COVID, and it cost them trillions. They don't have any spare change for real war. So my assumption is that these headlines will wear off, not from the safety perspective, from the stock action perspective. Wall Street freaks out when something new comes to the headlines, and then they get used to it, and then they live with it, and then until the new one hits. So the stocks trying to live with it. All right, so what about Boeing? Boeing got shellacked today, down 4%. I think it closed a little bit off the low. There's some good news, there's some bad news. The good news is a little higher time frame. This is 2-hour chart. If we zoom out, and I will in a little bit, you'll see that it's range bound. So that's good, predictable. It's swinging between lows and highs. The bad news is that today it looks like it triggered some sort of a neckline of sorts, like bounce, 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 lost. Usually that has more downside to about this much, roughly. So if that's correct, then there is much more to go. And the problem is, I think there's a gap down there. We'll get to it in a second. There is some good news at this time frame, meaning Monday or Tuesday they might pop up. And this is bounce. This is important if you're long the stock, because the ABCs that Nick preaches to his group, which is hundreds and I have their attention every day, when it pops, you have to do a few things, repairs. If you're long and this pop fixes your problem, you should close that long. That's my personal preference. When it pops and I'm in trouble and it pops, I get out of trouble. Thank you, I'm out. I'll deal with it later. If I took longs today and I get quick cash in the morning on Monday, I will get out. If I needed protection, if it pops and I can buy some put spreads cheaper than I could have today, I would. So those are important things on the rally, because I think when the rally comes on Monday, if it does, or Tuesday, it will face sellers trying to keep it down below this zone. Okay, so what's the good news, Nick? Geez, Louise. The good news is that the internals, so this is RSI, Relative Strength Index, so the internals of the stock, they should match the direction of the price. So the price just made a lower low. The internals didn't. So that was a low on a flash crash from the market that was incredibly scary, and a low from the January 24th, 8th and 4th. January 24th is where the indices bottom. There's a few sectors that dropped one more time. So late January dip and late February dip, almost a month later exactly. They were pretty scary market days. This guy made higher low on the internals than that day, so maybe that's some sign of improvement internals. In other words, most of the weak hands in the stock may have shaken out. Technically, that's not the case. From the levels perspective, that's not the case. The internals maybe. So this is a 2-hour chart. Let's go to 4 hours and start zooming out. Okay, I'll go to a daily. So this is a daily chart, and that's what concerns me. It's been in a it's a descending trend, but it's somewhat stable. And then they draw a line, and then they fall through the line. So look, they draw a line, they fall through, they try to recapture it. I told you on the pop, I would get out. If these guys listened, they would have saved themselves this. So on Monday, if you get that, be the person that takes advantage of it. They got it back, but that's how it usually is. Okay, so that's the bad news, that it could be doing this. And I told you that arrow could be. They can still recover. There's this gap down here. Now this gap is kind of weird. It's not really a gap in volume because there's plenty of volume behind it. So if you look at the volume profile, there isn't a gap. So it's not a magnet. Usually if there's like a gap like this, like strong, and a gap in the middle, you'd say, whoop, okay. But in this case, I don't see it. Maybe they still go there. I'm not sure. So short term, trepidation. Long term, nothing has changed. So let's go to long term. This is a weekly chart. I cheated and zoomed out to see what the hell's going on. So at first glance, I have an arrow saying important since 2017. And that is correct. That's 2017. It was a fail and a huge rally. I don't remember what was the selling point here. I mean, goodness gracious. Okay, I understand here the pandemic, but what the hell was that? Yeah, and look at this rally. Turns out that Boeing has done that before. So let's go to a monthly chart. So now we're going to a super long-term perspective for investors rather than traders. Okay, so it rallies too much, and then it gives it back, like here, and then it gives it back. But this is exceptional. There is one time that I thought could have been like it, like this one here. But it's not as big. This is about 100%, I think. This is 200 and something percent. So, but it's similar. It rallied, and then came back, crashed. So, I think the Amazon person is here. So it has done it before. So I figured, okay, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone and do something new. So today in the live room, somebody suggested, well, we discussed pitchforks. I'm not an expert, but I know they kind of give me an idea of like what is sane, what's a sane trajectory. So if you don't know what pitchforks are, do a lot of homework. Don't learn everything from me. Just take a starting idea. So you pick a period of time that represents a start of something. That's the way I do it. And then you pick a couple extensions, 1 and 2. And then it gives you a range, like almost like a bell curve type of a deal. Weird, like plus or minus 1 standard deviation. This is not it. I'm explaining it in my simple whacked out way. And then unusual. And look at this unusual over the unusual. So if this were to be a nice rally, it should have stayed somewhere inside this range, which is where it is right now, right smack dab in the middle. So pitchforks for me are not tradable for me because I'm not an expert in it, but it gives me another opinion as to, hey, you know, a sane way of rallying off of this stuff is like stay in the middle, like a best fit line. What the hell is this? And this, somewhere in the middle lies the truth, which means nothing has changed. It's been on an upside trajectory. They overdid it. They corrected the overdid it. And then, the pendulum swings both ways and then until it stabilizes. So not tradable, just gives me perspective. Back to the daily. So how would I trade this? Today, I would have sold the put spread or sold puts to own shares. I said that the other day. I said I would sell one, and then if it bounces, I would sell a call spread, or I would do an iron condor straight away. So if I sold one and it's under fire today, I wouldn't have done anything with that today because the whole market is down and it held. It took a beating bigger than the market itself. So we'll see what happens this coming week. Maybe we have let's put it this way. If nothing happens over the weekend, hopefully the situation in the Ukraine stabilizes a little bit. I'm not expecting solution, but at least not an aggravation, like further deterioration. If that happens, then maybe you get a relief pop on Monday. And if you do get a relief pop, if I'm long the stock and that relief pop gives me some relief on my position, I should consider closing it. Now, technically, one thing I haven't mentioned, this little M looking thing is called a crab. It's a harmonic pattern. I don't draw it. It's automatically picked up by a pretty cool software from harmonictrader.com. Scott Carney is behind this one, at least my contact there. And it's not, it doesn't, if you get it, it's not cheap, but it's super helpful if you learn how to use it. In other words, the pattern completes here, but that doesn't mean you go long here. It just says go look for longs. And look, it delivered 2 targets out of the 2 that it displays. And then now it's back testing further. And if I look up the internals, and if the internals are not deteriorating, all I need is just one more thing for me personally to say, okay, maybe it does it again. So maybe there's another rally. And that one more thing could be something you can come up with. So there's your homework. I don't know. Are you a good MACD person? If so, lay on, add MACD. Maybe the MACD tells you, okay, there's a crossover or something. Crossover, from underneath. Or if you're a level guy like me, but the levels are too far back, I don't know if they're reliable. So there is no clear level. So level is not it. MACD is not it. I just offered you RSI, 2 of them. One from the tool itself, amplified RSI, and one regular RSI. Pick something else. If you know Ichimoku, throw it in there. If you get confirmation. So now you have 3 things telling you do this or do that. All right, so that's it. Fundamentals, I didn't talk about them because they're kind of weird. I mean, it's one of 2 companies. If people are going to buy planes, they're going to buy it from them. But they don't recognize sales until they actually deliver planes. And their clients are all in trouble. That's all the airlines. So it goes here. It used to be a bulletproof stock because there were no issues with the airlines. The whole world was on cruise control. We were doing our thing. And now a whole bunch of things have changed. So it's no longer a given. And by the way, I added this channel. This channel is not like touching sides. I'm just showing who's in control of the price action. So I could have done it this way. I don't care. I'm just showing you that the bears are in control and they're selling rallies. They're selling rallies, all of them. So maybe we're due for a rally that they're going to sell. That's another reason why. On a rally, I should get out. They're selling rallies. That's the behavior, price behavior. It's not. I'm not trying to oh, look, I touched the line. No, this is price behavior. All right. Hopefully that helps.